صامدين، احنا صامدين مع المقاومة. لو آخر نفس فينا، لو آخر طفل فينا، احنا منصورين بإذن الله تعالى. الله سبحانه وتعالى حيخسفهم. احنا من أجل دعوة الله بنحارب. لا قتلوا شيخ، قتلوا الأطفال، قتلوا الشيوخ، قتلوا النساء، دمروا عليهم الناس تحت الردم. لا في تيجي الصحافة كل نسيبنا إلا ما كتب الله. يا مرحب بالشهادة. اللهم خذ من دماءنا، اللهم خذ من دماءنا حتى ترضى يا رب. والله كنا مشروع شهادة.
استمعوا إلينا لنقل المعلومات من مصادرها الرسمية وتفسير حي للأحداث في حصص تحليلية مميزة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to mining activities, the presentations related to several economic sectors. Arab lawyers have met here in Algiers to examine concretely how to make the Israeli occupying authorities account for the war crimes perpetrated in the Palestinian territories. As the UN Security Council will be meeting tomorrow Wednesday to examine the latest developments in the Palestinian territories, the Palestinian Authority has called for the enforcement of a lasting truce in Gaza to allow for a political solution. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Slimani. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to mining activities and presentations relating to several economic sectors. Mariam Barshi tells us more.
During the meeting, the President said 2024 would be the year for far-reaching banking reform within the framework of a new global approach. Commenting on the presentation on the opening up of two public banks, the President of the Republic noted the imperative to take into account when opening up the capital of the two public banks, namely Crédit Populaire Algérien and Banque de Développement Local, modern management methods, especially as the operation aims at involving the private sector in the management of these major financial institutions, economic decision-making, and the creation of a competitive climate that is advantageous for the citizens among the bank's customers. President Tebboune said at the meeting of the Council of Ministers that the solidarity dimension of the state remained a constant principle, assuring that the state would not abandon those affected by natural disasters. Commenting on the assessment of the compensation operation of fishermen affected by the bad weather in the province of Tipaza, west of Algiers, the head of state said that the state would not abandon its children whose property has been destroyed in the circumstances caused by natural disasters, and that the state's commitment to solidarity remained a constant principle. After discussing the settlement of the case, the President of the Republic ordered that the necessary legal mechanisms be found to guarantee that these cases will be dealt with in the future, in particular through the insurance companies and the bodies responsible of supervising these craft activities.
Next, Mariam Barshi, who is with us here in the studio, will tell us about the visit of the UN Special Representative for Libya in Algiers, Abdoulaye Bathily. Yes, Mariam.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has received the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Libya and head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, Mr. Abdoulaye Bathily, now on a visit in the country. During the meeting, Mr. Attaf has reiterated Algeria's content support for Libya in her electoral process. Following the meeting, Mr. Attaf had this to say.
الجزائر التي طالما وقفت إلى جانب الشقيقة ليبيا قولا وفعلا.
Algeria, which has always stood by sisterly Libya with words and deeds, reiterates today that it will remain faithful to its policy and its position on the crisis threatening the unity and security of this brotherly country. Algeria will continue to fully support the efforts of both the United Nations and the African Union. We hailed in particular the efforts made to respect the text of laws necessary to frame the electoral process in Libya and to overcome the disputes blocking this process. We also hailed the meetings being organized by the AU with the participation of all Libyan political parties from east to west and even south to organize the major national reconciliation conference in Libya.
For his part, the UN official hailed Algeria's efforts and support for the holding of elections were, as he put it, the condition to reach stability.
Il faut des élections pour avoir un pouvoir politique unifié.
Elections are needed to have a unified political power in the country, unified military and security institutions, and this is the condition of stability and the condition of progress for Libya. And in this context, I am sure, Mr. Minister, that as you have already done so well, you will continue to support us so that this political and moral duty which the Libyan leaders must exercise can be achieved with the participation of our friends and neighbors.
De tous leurs voisins, et vous le faites si bien.
That was the special representative of the Secretary General for Libya and head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, Mr. Abdoulaye Bathily. Back to you, Jamal.
You're listening to Radio Algeria International. This is the English service. The President of the National Council for Human Rights, Abdelmajid Zalani, has received the President of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Imani Daoud Aboud. On the occasion, Ms. Imani Aboud has expressed her thanks to Algeria for having recently hosted the 71st Ordinary Session of the African Court on Human and People's Rights and the 6th African Judicial Dialogue. The meeting was also an opportunity for Ms. Imani Aboud to give a presentation on the court since its creation, its missions and its areas of competence, pointing out that the court was constantly working for the incorporation of African jurisprudence into the judgments courts of the countries that have ratified the protocol on the establishment of the African Court, including Algeria. In his return, Mr. Zalani hailed the role of the African Court and its jurisprudence, saying that the holding of the 71st session of the African Court on Human and People's Rights in Algeria was proof of her support for the promotion of human rights in Africa. Now, Arab lawyers have met here in Algiers to examine concretely how to make the Israeli occupying authorities account for the war crimes perpetrated in the Palestinian territories. Our report, Mariam Barshi, met with the advisor to the Palestinian Justice Minister Nasser Rais, who attended the meeting. He had the following.
This forum constitutes the first step towards the accountability of the war crimes, the Israelis. It will be achieved through this forum that will pave the way for a roadmap. We will focus on Israel and its allies, since 6 countries have contributed to carrying out such crimes in the Palestinian territories.
Evoking the evidenced war crimes carried out by Israel against civilians, the president of the Jordan Bar Association, attorney Yahya Abu Aboud, had this to say.
We will try its commanders, soldiers. It has been evidenced in various cases. The entity's prime minister has ordered the displacement, causing another catastrophe detrimental to the Palestinian people at a time when one of its cabinet members advocated the use of a nuclear weapon against the Palestinians.
Our reporter Mariam Bershi also met with the Deputy Secretary General of the Arab Lawyers Union, Lebanese lawyer Jamal Ahmed, who referred to Israel's accountability.
Undoubtedly, there is an active Israeli lobby and well-rooted in the international courts. Israel is not a member of the International Criminal Court, ICC, to the contrary of Palestine. We will fight to secure Israel's condemnation for the crime it perpetrated in Gaza, in the West Bank, and even in Lebanon.
As the UN Security Council will be meeting tomorrow Wednesday to examine the latest developments in the Palestinian territories, The Palestinian Authority has called for the enforcement of a lasting truce in Gaza to allow for a political solution. Addressing a meeting in Barcelona of the Union for the Mediterranean, the Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki stressed the necessity to extend the truce to make it last, while insisting that there will be no other solution but to end the war. He said that the opportunity offered to extend the truce by 1, 2 or 3 days must be seized in order to save innocent lives. In a similar move, the EU diplomacy chief Josep Borrell stated that the truce, which is to come and to end tomorrow Tuesday, constituted a major step, but it must be extended in a bid to work out a political solution that will, once for all, break the spiral of violence. He pointed out that peace and security could not prevail unless a Palestinian state was set up, and stressed that he was shocked that new funds were allotted by the Israeli government for the construction of new housing units during its aggression on Gaza. Earlier, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke out in favor of an extension of the truce to allow for the release of more prisoners and the delivery of more aid. This came as the UN Security Council will be meeting in 2 days' time to address the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Chinese Foreign Ministry, whose country ensures the revolving presidency of the Council, said he hoped the meeting would pave the way for a ceasefire and contribute to easing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. 14 hours 41 minutes Algiers time will come in live to you from the capital Algiers. Next, report by Miriam Barshi on the situation prevailing in the Gaza Strip with Italian criminal lawyer Chantal Meloni, who was contacted by the Algerian radio.
Since the beginning, the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip has caused unaccountable victims. Schools, homes, hospitals and protected facilities of international organizations were attacked continuously despite the international humanitarian law prohibiting civilians from being attacked. Palestinian civilians were unable to leave the enclave due to the unstoppable bombing and other forms of attacks. An Italian criminal lawyer, Chantal Meloni, stressed that civilians were not receiving humanitarian aid before the truce.
Indeed, it is clear that international humanitarian law, so the law that regulates armed conflicts, has not been respected in the past weeks during the attacks in Gaza. And international humanitarian law has been violated in many different ways, starting from the fact that an entire civilian population, 2.3 million people, the civilian population of Gaza, has been collectively punished in a way that is absolutely contrary not only to international humanitarian law, also to human rights law. So we have seen, first of all, that the civilian population has been blocked inside Gaza. Fuel is not admitted. Water has been blocked as well, so that the people are now literally, since weeks, starving and have no access to water.
Mrs. Meloni added that the Israeli authorities have breached the most important principles of humanitarian law. It appears clearly that there was no effort made to save civilians.
Plus, the bombings, the way the aerial bombings have been carried out are in disregard of the 3 most important principles of international humanitarian law: the principle of distinction, the principle of precaution, and the principle of military necessity, meaning that it appears clear that the precautions that are there in order to protect the civilians during even legitimate attacks have not been taken. In fact, we are seeing a number of civilians killed in these weeks, which is absolutely not compatible with the fact that they are just collateral damages.
Regarding the question of the complicity of other states in this war, notably by delivering weapons, Mrs. Meloni stated that all laws prohibit states from selling weapons to any state who risk to breach humanitarian law or to commit war crimes. Therefore, those states could be considered accomplices.
There are laws that also regulate how weapons can be exported to countries that are in conflicts, involved in conflicts. And these laws are, again, some of them are international laws, and every country, at least in Europe, but I guess also beyond Europe, has its own regulation how to authorize the export of weapons. So these laws, the bottom line is that no weapons should be exported, they should be delivered when there is a risk that these weapons are used in violation of international humanitarian law or even to commit war crimes. So definitely there is an argument, and some lawyers are already making this argument. In the UK, we have seen some actions, but also in Australia and in other countries, that those governments that are now delivering weapons to Israel and are so giving them the tools to continue these grave violations of international humanitarian law could be complicit.
That was Chantal Meloni, Italian criminal lawyer and professor at the Università degli Studi di Milano Statale, Italy, where she teaches international criminal law.
Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson urged that the truce take a stable form and that the cruel aggression of the Zionist regime against Gaza is not repeated. Nasser Kanani said, "We want and expect that the crimes of the Zionist regime against the Palestinian people will be stopped completely." During his weekly news conference, Kanani told reporters that Iran is following the possible extension of the truce. Now, the president of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has chaired a coordination meeting on the 47th Conference of the European Coordination for the Support of and Solidarity with Sahrawi People, UCOCO, in which Algeria will take part with a delegation made up of members of both houses of parliament. The meeting was attended by the president of the Algeria Western Sahara Parliamentary Friendship Group, Miloud Tissouh, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Affairs Committee of the Council of the Nation, Miloud Hanafi, as well as members of both chambers of parliament who will participate in the conference, a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the national community abroad, in addition to the president of the Algerian National Committee of Solidarity with the Sahrawi People, Saïd Ayashi. The 47th Conference of UCOCO will take place in Toledo, Spain, next Friday and Saturday under the theme "Independence is the Only Solution." This is Radio Algeria International. Next, our economic program.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the Minister of Fisheries and Fish Production, Ahmed Badani, has said in Oran that the draft finance law for 2024 provides for financial and tax incentives for aquaculture in agricultural basins and for seafood farming businesses. In a statement to the press on the sidelines of the opening of the second Algerian Youth Forum organized by the High Council for Youth and entitled Challenges in the Age of Citizenship, Algerian Youth Between Political and Economic Empowerment, Ahmed Badani said that his ministerial department was working to provide technical training and financial support for young people in aquaculture with a view to setting up tilapia fish production companies in the south. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received a delegation from the Italian CGI Group, led by the group's chairman and founder Gianfranco Curti, with whom he examined investment opportunities in the energy sector, according to a ministry press release. During the meeting, which took place in the presence of ministry officials, the two parties examined investment opportunities between Sonatrach and the Italian group in the energy sector, particularly in the field of natural gas and its marketing. The Higher Youth Council has signed in Iran 2 framework agreements with the Ministries of Agriculture and Rural Development and Fisheries and Fish Production with a view to strengthening cooperation in supporting young people in their private projects and integrating them more fully into these 2 sectors. On this occasion, the Agriculture Minister stressed the importance of these agreements, which he maintained would enable young people to become more involved in agriculture, particularly in view of the geopolitical and climatic changes that require countries to guarantee food security in order to achieve national security. In more Algerian economic news, the Algiers Airport Services Management Establishment, Aegis SA, has taken a series of measures to improve passenger handling and goods processing by modernizing IT systems, providing support and strengthening human and material resources, according to Aegis SA CEO Mohamed Saleh Kouash. The explanations were given during a hearing session before the Transport and Telecommunications Committee of the National People's Assembly APN, chaired by Kamel Louisset, committee chairman, as part of the examining of the draft law laying down the general rules governing civil aviation, according to a press release from the Assembly. A number of agreements and memorandums of understanding have been signed in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, between Algerian economic operators and their Saudi counterparts, focusing mainly on areas of cooperation between businessmen, business incubators and accelerators, and the setting up of joint ventures, according to the Ministry of Trade and Export Promotion. The agreements were signed on the sidelines of the Algerian-Saudi Business Forum, which was co-chaired by the Minister of Trade and Export Promotion, Tayyip Zitouni, and the representative of the Saudi Minister for Investment, Badr ibn Ibrahim al-Badr, in the presence of the Chargé d'Affaires at the Algerian Embassy in Riyadh, Bashir Bakhouch. The agreement signed between Sonatrach and the Turkish company Botas for the sale and purchase of liquefied natural gas LNG for the Turkish market will run for 3 years, according to a press release issued by the National Hydrocarbons Company. The agreement was signed by the CEO of Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi, and the CEO of the Turkish company Botas, Abdul Wahid Fidan, during a ceremony at the Presidency of the Republic, co-chaired by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, and his visiting Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And to wind up our program, the international rating agency AM Best has awarded the Algerian insurance company CART a financial strength rating of B satisfactory and a long-term issuer credit rating of BB plus satisfactory for the 2022 financial year with a stable outlook, CART said in a press release. This rating, obtained for the 3rd year running, confirms CART's stability and balance sheet strength, which is based on risk-adjusted capitalization due to an average return on premiums of 24.8% and a return on equity of 9.7% for the period 2018 to 2022, the same source said. And with this, we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Take care.
You're listening to Radio Algeria International. The Secretary General of Norwegian Refugee Council, Jan Egeland, has said in a statement on the humanitarian pause in Gaza that they will do all that they can to provide relief to those in need in Gaza during the 4-day humanitarian pause. Here's a report on the subject.
The Secretary-General of the Norwegian Refugee Council said a pause of few days is not enough time to address the immense needs after 6 weeks of fighting, bloodshed and destruction, stressing that the humanitarian pause must pave the way for a lasting ceasefire. He added that a sustained ceasefire is needed to prevent further civilian deaths and provide safety for people in need of vital humanitarian assistance. Youssef Hamesh is the Norwegian Refugee Council spokesperson in Gaza. For 3 years, he has been working as their advocacy officer in his homeland. In this role, he documents life from within what is known by many as the world's largest open-air prison. The Norwegian Refugee Council has shared with Radio Algeria International the testimony of Youssef Hamesh, who spoke about the situation on the ground on the first day of the truce and the feeling of the survivors of the ethnic cleansing in Gaza. As he said, everyone has a story.
Today is the first day of the truce after that 7 weeks of bombardment, 7 weeks of non-sleeping, 7 weeks of the violence that we never ever imagined in our lives that we would ever see. These 7 weeks were the longest, the heaviest, the hardest, the unimaginable 7 weeks. Today, the first day of the truce, people were everywhere in the streets. It was really traffic. People were encouraged to be in the streets. Thousands of them were in the streets for the first time. Thousands of people who fled to Norwa schools or other shelters, especially who live in eastern part of Khan Yunis and eastern part of Rafah, eastern part of the middle area. Most of them go back today to check their houses, if it's still there, if they get any of their needs from there. It was weird feeling in the streets, how people are reacting. If you look to their faces, you cannot understand it. You can see people who are a bit happy, they are alive at least. Other people who have this time as an opportunity to feel sad and sorrow for what they lose, for their loved ones. It's a case by case for everyone here. You cannot understand the general situation because there is no general situation here. It's a case by case. Everyone have his own story, his own way of thinking, his own loss.
Youssef has been documenting life in Gaza since the 7th of October almost daily, despite significant personal challenges and connectivity issues. Due to security reasons, Youssef could not go back home and check what remains of his house or his parents' house following the massive destruction by the Israeli occupation airstrikes. He said it is impossible to meet the needs of the refugees in the 4-day truce.
Thousands of people also were trying to go back north. The Israeli forces have prevented them. The Israeli forces prevented everyone to cross Salah ad-Din Street, while everyone was hoping at least to go to check, because even I personally wanted to know if my house still there, my parents' house still there, if we have anything remaining there. Unfortunately, I couldn't. That's why I say it's really weird feeling from the people here around us. If you look to the people's face, you can see that people still have hope. Maybe they are looking for this as an opportunity for a longer truce to reach a ceasefire. Also, part of the day was an NRC to do an assessment, to interfere, to serve and help displaced people, but it's more than impossible, not only for us, even for all the humanitarian actors combined together, to serve more than 1 million people who have been displaced. And even people who haven't been displaced, also they are in need. And it's more than impossible to serve all of these needs, it's more than impossible to cover the needs of all the people in the south in 4 days. I don't think if we combine all the humanitarian actors, either UN or international organization or local together, can manage to serve all people in need. Also, the amount of trucks that coming from Rafah are not enough to cover a small percentage of the need, but we are trying. We will keep trying to do our best to serve people in need, and because this is why we are here, that's what giving us a reason to stay.
Youssef, the advocacy officer and spokesperson of the Norwegian Refugee Council in Gaza, was displaced from his home in the north to Khan Yunis with his wife and 2 small children. He expressed hope the truce would pave the way for a lasting ceasefire in order to save the lives of the innocent civilian Palestinians who have lost their loved ones, homes, and have nothing left after the Israeli barbaric offensive.
I really wish this truce will extend to a ceasefire, and this is the hope of all Palestinians who are trapped in Gaza under this unimaginable situation. So it might be a hope, and it might lead for something in the horizon. Hopefully we will reach a ceasefire. And I had a really, really weird feeling, but I feel I was in need for that feeling. I moved while I have the feeling of safety while I was driving in Gaza, going from a place to place without the fear of getting bombed. So hopefully it's a beginning for something bigger.
The Norwegian Refugee Council said children in Gaza are traumatized and many face a future without their parents and siblings, stressing that they need urgent, long-term help, which can only happen through a sustained ceasefire.